Thank you all for coming out this evening. As you can see, there's a little preview of all the exciting and fun activities that have gone on this week. I'm Christy Stark, Assistant Director of Development Services, and tonight we're going to give you a kind of a debrief and overview of all the work that has been done this week, the product that has come out of this, and the product that has come out of this is because of each of you who have been involved during this week, who have taken the time and the hours and come out and been part of the entire week of activity. And so since last week, when we were all here on Thursday, we've had about, I would say, 15 individual meetings on specific topics and with specific groups that anyone could come and be involved in. This is our third public event during the week. And we've also had a continual design studio open for anyone to come and be a part of, work with our consultants, work with our staff, other citizens, other development community, anyone who is interested in the code for San Marcos could come at our location on LBJ, and that's been open all week long. So tonight you're going to get to see all the work that you've done. We want to thank each of you. We want to thank our think tank members. I think we almost have our whole crew here. If you're a part of the think tank, would you stand up really quick? All right. Thank you guys very much. Yay. And they're going to be working with us throughout this entire project. So they're not finished. And also want to thank staff for the many long hours that they have put in on this and have been involved in behind the scenes. Our consultants have done an amazing job. I do believe we've got one elected official. Did I see Mayor Pro Tem John Tomites? Is he here, I believe? Yeah. I just saw him. We want to thank all of our elected officials, our city council who has been so supportive of this project, as well as our other boards and commissions. There's Mr. Tomites right there in the back. Next we have is our city manager, Jared Miller. You can see him in the dark back here. And we also have Assistant City Manager Colette Jameson. All right, so I'm about to turn this over to Abby Gilfillan, our project manager. But last but not least, I know it's something you've all been so excited about. At the end of tonight, we are going to give away our City of San Marcos custom-made belt buckle. So do not leave because you may miss out on the belt buckle. All right, I'm going to turn it over to Abby.
Great. Well, thank you very much. Thank you all for being here. This has been a really fun week. We've gotten so much done, and it's been so fun to see all of you involved in the process along the way. This is our tonight's agenda. We're going to talk a little bit about the project. We're going to go over the whole week and sort of do an overview of the week, and we're going to show you the product that's really come out of that. We're going to be asking you about what you think about the product as well throughout the night, with keypad polling and surveys. So if you've been to some of the other events, you'll be familiar with that, but it's kind of fun. First, I want to talk a little bit about the neighborhood character studies and the Brand Your Neighborhood activity that a lot of you guys have been participating in. I'll start with just a little bit of background. This is what the comprehensive plan said about those neighborhood character studies. It's that as a next step, neighborhood character studies will be conducted to determine the types of projects that will be supported within the areas of the building. So that's really what we're doing with these neighborhood character studies, and people have put a whole lot of work into them. These are the areas on the map where we conducted studies in each of these areas. A neighborhood character study, here's the contents of the study, where it comes, what's in it. There's lots of existing conditions, maps, where we look at how are the sidewalks existing, what's the existing zoning districts, what's the environmental, the existing, are there sensitive features or anything like that within each of these areas. The next thing that we do is we go out and we actually, and staff went out and has done this already, has gone out and measured. So they'll go ahead and take lots of measurements of the neighborhood. How far apart are your buildings? How wide are the streets in each of these neighborhoods? And those measurements really start to form the DNA of the neighborhood, and they really are what makes up the character of your neighborhood. So if you, for example, just imagine if you took a measurement between the front of two structures in our downtown, on our square. And if you went from the front of the building across the street to the front of the building, if you took that measurement, And then you did the same thing again at over on Highway 123. And you can see the difference that you would get in that number and how that really does start to make up the character of an area. That's what a synoptic survey does. Then we did the brand your neighborhood activity, which I'll go through later and show you how much response we got. It really was a great activity. And all of the input that we get from the neighbors and from the folks that live there, the residents, as well as the schools, the kids that live there. I encourage you to check out some of the boards and some of the things that the kids have put together. It's been really, really fun. So all of the information about the neighborhoods and what people want to see, the opportunities, the assets, and the constraints of the neighborhood. And then the last chapter is the Informing the Code chapter. So here's the number of participants we had and where they were, what neighborhoods were most represented by the Brand Your Neighborhood activity. We had 72 adult residents take a kit. We had 75 high school students participate. We had 86 elementary school students participate. And so in all, we had 233 people that participants. We are still receiving kits back and we'll still be continuing to do that. So I don't have the final numbers as to how many we got back. But we're still receiving and we're still soliciting those kits. These are all the folks that, this isn't completely updated here, but these are the folks, all the folks that have participated. So we're really thankful for everybody who did a kit. Here's some of the stuff from the schools. One of the things you'll see, what we noticed here, these kids are talking about really they're wanting to create places in their neighborhood. They want museums, they want aquariums, they want grocery stores, places that they can walk to. They want to be able to walk there safely as well. So these guys are talking about transportation. You've got somebody on their bike that's falling, screaming help, and the mom's there, hold on. So and these are really fun, like I said, so you should make sure to go over and look and put it together. So what did we gain from the Brand Your Neighborhood activities? What we gained is we gained information that can go directly into the Code SMTX project. That type of information is stuff we heard a lot about connectivity on streets. We heard about sidewalks. We heard about environmental trees, landscaping, and all of those things are development standards that can go directly into a code without having to rezone an area. So those are the things that are going directly into the code now. We heard a lot of other stuff too, and those are sorts of things like I want neighborhood stores that are within keeping with my neighborhood or within the character. I want standards for my neighborhood that represent what the housing stock and the types of blocks that are currently there. Those sorts of requests and those sorts of things, they actually require a rezoning of property, and that's not what we're doing with this project. And we'll talk a lot more as you go through. We'll see what this project is really about. But one of the things that we'll talk about with this project is that it is about creating places, it is about relieving the pressure in the neighborhoods and protecting the stability of those neighborhoods during this period of growth. And that's the Brand Your Neighborhood talking about.
So my name is Jason King, and I get to present the work of a very talented, multidisciplinary team. Dover Partners, TPDC, the Street Planners Collaborative, and Daedalus, planners and architects and coders and transportation planners and economists. Here we are at the Work in Progress presentation. A lot of you have been with us through multiple events, and we appreciate that. But this isn't the end. The Work in Progress is just a pinup of ideas. This is where we are in the timeline. We're in October. In the spring, we come back with a draft code. And then there are multiple public meetings and workshops, and we get input from you. And then we're working toward adoption hearings, which are also public meetings in the summer. So draft, just so that way you know, okay? We just finished this. We got here 5 minutes late. This is basically a pinup of ideas. People have been asking throughout this process, haven't we done this before? We were there for the comprehensive plan. We worked on the intensity zones. What are we doing here? And what we're doing is really a refinement on those ideas. The comprehensive plan was very general, goals and policies. Then came the preferred scenario, which talked about intensity zones and land use. And now we're working on the Unified Development Ordinance, which gets very specific. Let me show you what that looks like graphically. A lot of you know this map. This is your intensity zone map. You chose, as a community, where you wanted to see development. It was away from the aquifer. It was away from existing neighborhoods quite often. It was where there are currently services. And you worked on creating essentially these big purple areas on the map, like Midtown, or the Triangle, or the Medical District, or the South End. What we've been doing this week is defining that even further. So those big purple areas that you see on the map, like that or that, now are areas that have specific streets and greenway paths and public spaces and a whole variety of essentially neighborhood fabric. That's where, with your input, we're taking this even further. A lot of you were with us as we toured around on the rubber trolley in July. That was our first look. This last week, we've gone to different people's neighborhoods, to even people's homes. Abby's been our tour guide, and we got to look at all the different areas. We didn't draw anything without walking it and talking to a lot of people affected. Thursday, we had the hands-on design session at the Activity Center. You saw that film. That was from that event. We had over 110 people, which is an excellent turnout for a city this size. People wrote on the maps, right? We had our task force, think tank members, city staff were at those tables. The ideas that we got during that session have thus been basically on the framework, the groundwork of the plan. And so is the questions that we were asking you. If you remember, we did the keypad poll, we'll do that again tonight. We asked you how you would rate this, right? And 96% said yes. No, it's never the case that everybody says yes. All right? And so, environmental protection. This was one way that you were telling us that that's very important. Quality in planning, in architecture, was another thing that you responded very positively to. And then when we started to show you pictures like this one, like how things as it comes up through the town, your gateway, the first impression people get as they drive into your town, you were acting more negatively. Green meant hate it. We started to show the kind of development that isn't anyone's fault. The developers are building it according to your existing land development regulations, and it's producing things that are getting mixed results in terms of how people perceive or enjoy those places. And that's as true of retail as it is of neighborhoods. And it isn't to say that everything new is bad. A lot of what's been happening, as revealed by that community survey, is very exciting to people. There's a lot of very good, high quality new neighborhoods. And that's something that we took note of as we started to do the drawing, do the designs in our design studio. At our open house, we had over 65 people. People coming in, they were looking at the design. We got to talk to think tank members about what we were showing. Neighborhood Association, Kona, met with us. Actually, and Christy mentioned the 15 meetings. Well, since then, we've actually, in the last few days, had even more. We have had over 22 meetings, technical meetings. So, they were with local neighbors, floodplain administrators, TechStop, we just met with them an hour and a half ago. City Planning Department, we've had 2 different meetings with local developers. We've had multiple meetings with the people in charge of economic development in your community. And the conversation has also been online. So far, we've had 192 inputs or comments or interactions on our virtual town hall. Go to the city's website, bottom right corner, there's a big glowing blue dot. Click on that, and it'll take you right to the online town hall. Now, if we had to summarize, we heard a lot from people. But if we had to really sum up what we heard in terms of 5 big ideas, they sort of look like this. Number 1 was protection of the environment. That's what we heard. Specifically, people talked about preserving water quality and access to the river. We also heard about a more balanced transportation network, more ways of getting around than just the current auto-only system. People talked about cool and varied places to live, with younger people especially here, but also a lot of your creative people who are just seeking more options in terms of places to live. And quite often they're talking about a walkable experience or a varied environment. We were told, when development happens, it's inevitable. San Marcos is one of the fastest growing communities in the country. Build it like it once was done. Plan as thoughtfully as we have in the past. Real centers for new development. Found new areas. San Marcos was found new areas, not just sprawling out, a lot of thought, but create places that add to the overall value and livability of the community. And then, very big, huge, protect existing neighborhoods. There's a lot of students in this town, as you know. So one of the things our team was looking at was how through design we can actually mitigate and create transition. And at the same time, neighbors were talking about enhancing certain respects, better street sections, street trees. So it wasn't just keep everything 100% as is. The neighborhoods still see some room for improvement. Let's go to the keypad poll. Remember we did this last time? Everybody should have one of these keypad devices. Does anyone need a keypad device? Just raise your hand. There are a couple in the back. These first few questions are just to figure out who's in the room. Then we're going to show you some of the ideas. And then we're going to ask you some policy questions. First, we're trying to figure out what part of the city you're from. So what you're going to do is push numbers 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 on your keypad to answer this question. The last one that you push is the one that gets recorded. So if you change your mind about where you're from, push number 1 for east of I-35 and north of Highway 123. Push 2 for east of Highway 35 and south of Highway 123. 3 for west of I-35 and north of Ranch Road 12. And 4 for west of I-35 and south of Ranch Road 12. And if we totally missed the ball on this, hit number 5 for other. Okay. So we have people from everywhere, including other, which is good. But it looks like a large percentage of the people are from west of I-35 and north of Ranch Road 12. Which is coincidentally also where most people's houses are anyway, so that might make sense. Next question. Did you attend the hands-on design session, open house, or visit us at the Open Design Studio at any point during this process? This last week, have you visited us before? Okay, so 70% has been part of this process, and we have 30% newcomers. Very exciting. I told you about the 5 big ideas that we heard during the hands-on activity. Now let's talk about the plan in terms of those 5 ideas. On the maps that we got from the public, on 7 out of 12 of them, right, were these green spaces drawn like this. And people were talking about the square, and they were saying there should be more grand public spaces like the square. As the city develops, let's duplicate what's great. And so it appeared most legibly here, but throughout we saw that. And quite often we also saw a kind of grid of streets like you have in the downtown. What we did then, as part of calibrating this code, was a series of synoptic surveys, or surveys like this one. What essentially we did, Tony Garcia and Jennifer Garcia went out to the square and to the street around it, and they basically went into the street and they measured with the streets, the size of parking spaces, the distance between the building and the sidewalk, the depth of awnings, the amount of transparency. The idea here is that as, say, development continues down Highway 80 and up Highway 21, new communities have at their heart various squares. And so as we've been planning growth in those intensity areas, and as we've been drawing areas from this to this, and creating spots where people could go off the aquifer and on the eastern side, we're making sure that everyone gets that same experience of a legible, coherent center. The designers divided up all of these places into neighborhoods, basically 5-minute walk, 1,320 feet that people will walk from the edge to the center. And at the same time, all of the different plans that we've worked on that you'll see, which are basically drawn from the plans that you did with purple lines shown in the grid, each of them have a detailed green network of trails that go throughout each of the different communities. So we're developing, we're drawing compact places, but at the same time, it's a kind of density with design. And throughout all of them, there's also this difficult tension. You know, we can take development off of the aquifer recharge areas. We can take development away from areas where there are currently residents. But your farmland is still the area out east, and there's productive cornfields and agricultural fields. So what was important as we grow is that we continue to reserve in all of our plans areas for community-supported agriculture and for agriculture to continue, embedded right into the community quite often. And in this case, there's also a historic farmhouse, and there's a Native American Indian mound. These are also things that we watched for very carefully as we were trying to pick large spots that would be protected. We're using a new kind of zoning district, and Brian will talk a little bit about that as we go forward. In order to have this sort of compact, mixed-use, walkable areas that we have in the downtown, that we had historically, your zoning categories are really kind of ill-fitted for the task. And so, in order to match the zoning to your preferences, the discussion that we've been having, new character-based zoning districts are created, and they're shown throughout the plans. The other thing that people talked about was a more balanced transportation network. And you know, the way that revealed itself is people would quite often hear, for instance, they were drawing the word streetcar. They drew red lines or purple lines and little dots to show where transit stops could be located. 6 out of 12 tables talked about this. Now, your area has a lot of big streets planned for it. And we had time to talk to TxDOT and to talk to the municipal transportation agencies about what they were going to look like and how they were going to affect development. There are big streets around the world that look like this, where everything stays level, there's crosswalks, there's street trees throughout. This is a multi-way boulevard in France where there are large sidewalks for cafes, and there's many lanes of traffic, both for fast-moving traffic and for slow local traffic. This is a major facility. This takes 80,000 cars per day. What's interesting about this also is that along these avenues and boulevards are the highest value real estate in the city. If you live in Paris, you want to have, you know, a loft up here, you want to dine down here, you want to work along this. That's very different than our major facilities in the United States. When we build a big road, it looks more like this. There's some advantages to it. Here, there might be a stoplight. Here, you fly right over. That's the idea. But these have a really negative effect, really, on property values throughout. What's been really interesting with working with the city is how hard the city has been trying to mitigate the issues created by this. So Interstate 82 is planned as an elevated flyover, and the city has been working to create pathways underneath it, shaded areas, benches for people, and at night to light these up potentially and create areas like that. And that makes a lot of sense. And our designers, as they were designing that same area, the triangle, have been putting within their designs these flyovers, these major facilities. And instead of centering everything around them, we've been actually doing our designs recognizing that these are going to be part of the situation. Each of the plans that we drew have those large primary streets that move tens of thousands of cars. There are also secondary street networks, local and green streets, and alleys and bike facilities planned throughout. This is what your street sections will look like as part of the Streets Master Plan and as part of the coding activity. Here is a boulevard. This is an enormous street. And yet, in this case, as opposed to the flyover, here what you see is the fast-moving traffic. Here you see the local streets. There are trees throughout. This facility is at grade. There are sidewalks for people, right? Large, 135-foot long street, but it's one that also has character. As you get smaller, you see that in times the cycle tracks, protected areas for bicyclists, can actually become areas for almost two-way traffic for bicycles. The sidewalks get quite large, trees throughout. And your local streets, something maybe you haven't seen in a long time, have a narrow width in terms of curb to curb in order to slow the lanes down and keep traffic moving slowly on the local streets to keep them safe. So I guess what I want to say is that within your own code, in the future, when you're thinking about streets, you will actually have facilities like this. This section right here, which is in your transportation master plan and part of our project, is this section. This, if it feels like something foreign and strange, hopefully for future generations in San Marcos, it won't be. That's nice. This is one of the drawings the kids did, right? Everything that we're trying to do with our transportation pretty much explained in this situation. See what's going on here? Right. Safer streets. Another big idea that we heard from the public, probably a major one, was the preservation of water quality and access to the river.
Right, so this was an easy one, because 12 out of 12 tables said that this is what's important. Preserving the water quality and access to the river is a thing that's vital to San Marcos. We have more work to do with this process. One of the things that we will be doing is we'll be coming back with some more meetings that are going to be specifically looking at water quality regulations and how we incorporate that into this code. Making sure that we keep clean water in the river is what makes San Marcos San Marcos. As well as water quality, and actually in addition to and helping with water quality is the Greenbelt Alliance Greenways plan here has been adopted directly into the character in it's already in the preferred scenario map, and it's going to be, it goes directly into all the town centers that are planned, and not just a part of them, but a key element of these plans. Here's an example here. This is the medical district, which is at Wonder World there, and Highway 123. So here's the plan here. It shows the greenway. This is an illustrative plan. It shows the greenway running right through there. These greenways are going to be at a minimum 200 feet wide, which allows for, it's really a biological corridor there that allows for animals and plants to thrive. This was one of the, we've already seen this picture, this was one of the things that we looked at. The corridor, this is a corridor and entrance to our city. This is how it was rated on Thursday night. 76% said this is not what we want to see coming into our city. So here it is in existing conditions. This road right here, it goes downhill directly to the San Marcos River. Right now, it's all pavement, 100% pretty much across. And one of the elements of this plan is to look at how can we use these streets not as green streets. How can we use these streets to help treat the water before it reaches the river? That's a really key element. As well as these streets being able to encourage pedestrian activity, bicycles, and really be a destination and a gateway. So all of those things can go together to make a really great place here in San Marcos.
The topic of protecting and enhancing existing neighborhoods, people would put green dots, at the neighborhood, at their own neighborhoods, and said, these are places where people have lived for a long time. Let's look out for them. Sometimes they were more overt than what they were saying. But 12 out of 12 tables, in some way, said protect and enhance. It's hard sometimes. At heart, I feel like I'm an environmental, and I hate, or at least I find it very difficult to show big, huge new developments without thinking about the benefits of them. One of the biggest is simply this. Right now, the development community is finding the lots within your neighborhoods, and they're locating the large student pods in those spots. And the only way really that we know how to sort of mitigate that is to provide new places where that could go, where students could actually have a a more balanced life in terms of uses and walkability and pedestrianism. And one of the real important reasons that we're doing that is really to, find spots like, for example, where Wonderworld Drive goes down. There's currently your government complex, and there's currently multifamily already, and there's quite a bit of farmland in this area. Okay. Instead of the next retreat or Aspen locating in this small neighborhood where they buy out houses and the houses disappear, places like this are actually spots that could accommodate growth very comfortably. And at the same time, potentially even be cool and interesting places for people to live. We heard a lot about that. 8 out of 12 tables talked about different things, and they showed areas like the mall site that said redevelop, and they road ped and biking, right? And they are not afraid, young people quite often, at building densely in certain areas. And the city's been working on this, right? The city's been working on getting more and more people to the downtown. Councilman Crowther is one of many people in a long line who have been working to get people back into the downtown. And little tactical things like this, like Matt and his staff worked on, and Abby continues to work on, is like taking the alleys and turning them into public spaces themselves. Or the suggestion that possibly they could have parkways, great restaurants, like the root cellar, where we go all the time, can actually have out in front of it occasionally and temporarily parking converted into even larger dining areas and public art and benches. Okay, so and the city's actually expanding that scope. They're looking for these large remnant areas where nothing is going on, and where the neighbors are all excited about the possibility. They're looking to turn places like this into public spaces. But there's very large areas, like the Spring Lake Mall, which has been struggling off and on, Springtown Mall. And there are plans for it, I'll tell you. And there are plans for it that are in keeping with the principles of the project. But what we were trying to do also is to talk about how places like this could adapt over time. You see, here's the big mall. There's a lot of parking that people aren't using very much. There are businesses within here which are valued, but there are quite a bit of space in between that could be infilled with grand public spaces, creating outdoor rooms, commercial areas and cafes that don't have to be built on cornfields. Over a long period of time, maybe not so long, you can imagine how graying sites could be transformed into new communities for the student population. These are all large student buildings, but they come outside. First you go through a green, and then there's a network of streets. There aren't gates, and the student activity is actually often right here along sort of new commercial streets. You see, but that other residents who don't necessarily live within that complex can go to. So there can still be the big pool for the debauchery, and there can be a gate that cordons that off. But this time, under this kind of a design, residents can actually participate in usable energy. Or, there are all kinds of halfway points that we can find. This is just a concept, an illustration of principles. It could be imagined that a great front door could be created while still keeping some of those businesses, those assets that are there. The plan has to be flexible. Another idea that we've heard a lot, the city is considering a larger city hall complex. Okay? The functions of the city hall need more space than they currently have. And the design life on the city hall buildings is sort of reaching their end. This is Hopkins Street that comes into town. When you're taking Hopkins towards the center, you pass by the city hall complex, you know it, and here are the multiple buildings that are currently on the site. There is a lot of land here, an enormous amount. If we think about creating walkable centers, you can imagine improvements to Hopkins. Right now it's a Department of Transportation road, but they're all about, we talked to them today, getting rid of what are really town's main streets. And you can imagine a new city hall, which would be at the center of a mixed-use district. This could be the new city hall, a grand, proud building. This could be a Hopkins transformed a crossable boulevard with intersections where it's safe to go from one spot to another. This rendering was done by Jim Story, one of our designers. This is a new kind of square. And around that square could be all kinds of public uses, public offices, but also commercial real estate to help pay for a grand civic building. A whole system of neighborhoods, student housing or housing of any kind really, could be helped make up a new kind of downtown, which is really not very far from the current. In a lot of ways, it's just an existing, just an extension of urban fabric.